Okay, a question I was asked before. I'm going to answer again. Is due process limited to citizens? It says the Constitution guarantees due process to all persons, not just citizens. This means non citizens, including undocumented immigrants, are entitled to fair treatment under the law. This includes the right to defend themselves in court. Does due process apply to citizens? Yes. Do you have rights if you're not a citizen? Although undocumented immigrants are not guaranteed all the same rights as U.S. citizens and legal residents, they have certain protections under the Constitution. These include the right to due process, the right to be with family, the right against unreasonable search and seizures, and the right to education. Non-citizens are persons and thus have all the rights that the Constitution protects for that person. Most importantly, the right to be deprived of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay? So yes, no due process, that's deprivation of rights. That's against the law. There was some political backlash on Kavanaugh of the U.S. Supreme Court, because he said because people could actually sue for that, which is true. You just look under deprivation of rights complaint form, put that in your search engine, your search bar up there, deprivation of rights complaint form, and it'll give you where to go, how to get the complaint form, and who to file it with. All right. But I was asked why. Because it was promised a long time ago. You have to go back in history. Okay, anybody familiar with Valley Forge? Okay, Valley Forge is a site of 1777-1778 winter encampment of George Washington's Continental Army during the American Revolution, located in Pennsylvania. The encampment, which lasted 6 months, was a period of immense hardships for soldiers due to cold, starvation, and disease, but also marked a turning point where the army was transformed into a more disciplined fighting force. Today, Valley Forge I love that part, where the army was transformed into a more disciplined fighting force. We'll go to the encampment. Okay, today Valley Forge is preserved as a National Historic Park, offering visitors a chance to explore historic sites, learn about the Revolution, and enjoy outdoor activities. Okay. We're going to go here. Okay, we're going to go down to the encampment. Okay, now this is why it says due process, it was for non-citizens as well as citizens. Okay, because most of the people at Valley Forge weren't considered citizens. All colonists weren't actually considered citizens because it was a colony. And British citizens had more rights than the colonists did. All right, back then it was English only, Christian only, and specifically Protestant. It was a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant government. Okay, so here we are at Valley Forge. Okay, with each household was a square 12 listed of 12 enlisted soldiers. Sometimes soldiers' family joined them to share the space as well. Throughout the encampment period, Mary Ludwig Hayes, approximately 250 to 400 other women had followed their soldier husbands or sweethearts to Valley Forge, sometimes with children in tow. Washington once wrote that the multitude of women in particular, especially those who are pregnant or have children, are a clog upon every environment, yet the women on the whole provided invaluable, whether on the march or the encampment like Valley Forge. They often earn income either by laundering clothes, nursing troops, which kept soldiers cleaner, healthy, in turn made the troops appear more professional, disciplined. Lucy Faulkner walks, Catherine Littlefield, Caddy Green, and senior officers' wives journeyed to Valley Forge on the behest of their husbands on December 22nd. Martha Washington predicted her husband would send for her as soon as his army went into winter quarter, and for that I must go. Indeed, she did, traveling to wartime with a group of slaves and other poor roads, reaching her destination in early February. Valley Forge had a high percentage of racial and ethnic diversity. Since Washington Army comprised individuals of each 13 states, about 30% of the colonial soldiers at Valley Forge did not speak English as their first language. Many soldiers and commanders hailed from German-speaking communities, as with Pennsylvania-born Brigadier General Peter Muhlenberg. Still others spoke Scottish or Irish Gaelic, and a few descended from French-speaking Huguenot and Dutch-speaking communities in New York. Local residents sometimes conversed in Welsh. Several senior officers in the Continental Army originally came from France, Prussia, Poland, Ireland, or Hungary. Although Native American and African Americans served in the Continental Army as drovers, wagoners, and laborers, other fought as soldiers, particularly from Rhode Island and Massachusetts, the smallest of the states. Rhode Island had difficulty meeting recruitment quotas for white men, spurring Brigadier General James Michael Vernon to suggest the enlistment of slaves for his first Rhode Island regiment. Over a 4-month period in 1778, the Rhode Island General Assembly allowed for the recruitment in exchange for enlistment. Soldiers of the first Rhode Island Regiment gained immediate emancipation. They always talk about Lincoln offering emancipation, but he was just reiterating what was promised in the Declaration of Independence, what these people gave their life for. These people shared their blood, sweat, and tears for. So for over a 4-month period in 1778, the Rhode Island General Assembly allowed for the recruitment in exchange for enlisting soldiers. So the first Rhode Island Regiment gained immediate emancipation, and their former owners received financial compensation equal to the slaves' market value. They bought freedom for 117 enslaved recruits before a law allowing them to do so was repealed, but these free African soldiers continued to enlist in the military. By January 1778, only 10% of Washington's effective force consisted of African American troops. Commanders brought servants and enslaved people with them into the encampment, usually black people. Washington's enslaved domestic staff included manservant William Lee, as well as cooks Hannah Till and her husband Isaac. William Lee had married Margaret Thomas, a free black woman who worked as laundress at Washington's headquarters. Hannah Hill, legal owner Reverend John Mason, lent her out to Washington, but Hannah secured an arrangement whereby she eventually bought her freedom. By spring, Wappingers, Oneida, Tuscarora warriors who were on the side of the Patriots, with prominent Oneida leader Joseph Lewis Cook of the St. Regis Mohawk among them, had joined the Americans at Valley Forge. Most served as scouts, keeping an eye out for British raiding parties in the area. In May 1778, they fought under Lafayette at Barren Hill. In oral history of the Oneida people, a prominent Oneida woman named Polly Copper bought hundreds of bushels of white corn to hungry troops, teaching them how to process it for safe consumption. During the Revolutionary War, most Native American tribes sided with the British in order to protect their traditional homelands and encroachment of American settlers. However, several tribes, including the Oneida, sided with the Patriots due to part to ties with American settlers, such as the Presbyterian minister Samuel Kirkland, the Seven Nations of Canada, and the Iroquois at what would be the Six Nations Reserve, of mostly immigrants from New York, were brought to the brink of war by Anglo-American conflict. Okay, so a lot of immigrants, you know, freed and enslaved black men, Native Americans. All different cultures, different religions. Came here for that simple promise. Simple promise right there. We the people, an iconic opening phrase for the preamble, the U.S. Constitution signifying that the authority and the power of the U.S. government derive directly from its citizens, not from a monarch or elite. The principle of popular sovereignty established the U.S. Constitution as the collective act of American people asserting that government serves the citizens and is not above them. Key aspects of we the people, source of authority. The phrase is established that government legitimacy comes from the consent of the governed, meaning that the power rests with the people. Foundation of the Constitution. The concept undermines the entire constitutional framework of the United States. Public purpose. The preamble that follows we the people that enlist the fundamental goals of the government, such as establishing justice, promoting general welfare, and securing liberty. Ongoing relevance. The preamble is written in the present tense, indicating that each generation of American continues to choose to give their power to the Constitution, making it an ongoing commitment to create a more perfect union. Associated programs. The phrase we the people also refers to educational programs and initiatives. We the people, the citizens, and the Constitution, a widely used educational program that teaches the students about history and principles of American constitutional democracy, culminating in congressional hearings. We the People podcast, a weekly podcast from the National Constitution Center. Okay, so all those people did that for this simple promise. We the people, the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice to ensure domestic tranquility, provide the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity. Do ordain to establish this Constitution of the United States of America. Okay, but there was a lot of conflict going on in Europe, religious wars, not just between the Christians, it was going on in Europe, the Catholics and the Protestants, and church divided, but, other parts of the world, with the Muslims, the Shiites, and the Sunnis, there's always the religious war. Okay, let's go here real quick. Okay, see, so all these ideas came from around the world, but so-called, this is where it starts. Magna Carta is a historic English charter from 1215 that established the principles that everyone, including the king, is subject to the law and is guaranteed individual rights and liberties. Signed by King John under duress from rebellious barons, it was a crucial, through ultimately unsuccessful and short-term step in the development of constitutional law and influenced the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights by providing a foundational symbol of individual freedoms against arbitrary rule, the rule of law. And the most significant contribution was the establishment that the idea that the king was not above the law. Individual rights is outlined specific rights, including those related to inheritance, widowhood, and protection from arbitrary seizure of property or imprisonment. Justice and due process. Clauses in America aim to ensure access to justice, stating that no one will sell to no one, deny, or delay a right to justice. Historical context issued by King John at Rumi, however that's pronounced, in 1215. It was intended to resolve conflict with powerful barons, but was later annulled by the Pope, plunging England into civil war. Reissued and enduring after John's death, Magna Carta was reissued several times and became part of an official English law, making a recognized foundation for liberty. Legacy and influence. Symbol of freedom. Despite being a document primarily for the medieval feudal system, the concept of free men was expanded over time. The Magna Carta became a powerful icon of freedom and a source of inspiration. American legal heritage, its principles influenced the American colonists and served as a model for the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights, which protects the freedom of all Americans. Modern relevance. The document remains highly respected in legal communities and continues to be cited by politicians and campaigners as a fundamental symbol of liberty and a bulwark against tyranny. When I was in 7th grade, I got ignored a lot. They didn't want to talk about this. 8th grade either. I haven't met a whole lot of people that know about the Magna Carta outside the legal world. But I thought you should know. Somebody asked why, are non-citizens guaranteed due process? Well, goes way back. Why? And it started before the writing of the Declaration of Independence. And gave us the United States Constitution. All right, a little trip through history and just letting you know, justice denied, no more. All right, but it's up to you. Remember, any denial of any constitutional rights is a privation of rights. All right. That's where you start the privation of rights. And that usually starts with your attorney. If your attorney isn't reviewing the rules of professional conduct with you, their legal obligations to you, every lawyer's legal obligations to everybody, to the public in general, as well as to their client. And the legal obligations of the judges to make sure that that happens. If not, then that's violating the Code of Judicial Conduct, 'cause reporting misconduct is mandatory in both the Rules of Professional Conduct and the Code of Judicial Conduct. So the judge is legally obligated to cite your attorney for ineffective assistance of counsel. Failure to do so is contempt of the very court they preside over. Failure to report the opposing party for misconduct is violating the Code of Judicial Conduct. The attorney should be reporting each other, and the judge. Everybody should reporting each other, thus proving the conspiracy against rights under the color of law. Google that, a conspiracy against rights under the color of law complaint form. Okay, let's do that real quick, okay? To file a complaint for conspiracy against rights under the color of law, you can file a complaint with the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division via their online portal. Contact the FBI or submit a civil rights complaint in U.S. District Court using the appropriate federal form. For state and local violations, you may also contact your Civil Rights Department. Okay, federal agencies. People, I'm just giving you historical facts, legal facts. I'm not telling you what it means. I'll let the letter of the law do that. Okay. So one more before we go. Penalties for violating the letter of the law depend entirely on the specific law and jurisdiction. There is no single universal consequence. Penalties can range from fines, civil action, and loss of license to imprisonment. For more serious criminal offenses, for civil cases, penalties for violating court rules, known as sanctions. Court rules, rules of professional conduct, code of judicial conduct, known as sanctions, can include monetary penalties, dismissal of claims, and even contempt of court. Charges can lead to fines or jail time. Remember, I said if the judge failed to report your attorney for ineffective assistance of counsel, is a contempt of the very court they preside over. Thus, in violation of the Code of Judicial Conduct, because reporting misconduct is mandatory. Failure to report is misconduct. Okay, factors determining penalties, severity of the violations. Violations are categorized as civil or criminal, with criminal offenses usually carrying more severe penalties. Jurisdiction. Penalties vary significantly between state, federal, and international law. Specific statutes. Each law has its own set of penalties, intent, and circumstances. The intent of the person and the context of the violation are crucial. Examples of the consequences: fines offer the consequences for minor offenses or violations of civil courts. Imprisonment for criminal offenses, sentences range from less than 1 year for misdemeanors to life for felonies. To life for felonies. Civil penalties can include monetary sanctions for violating court rules, rules of professional conduct, code of judicial conduct, or specific statutory penalties such as those imposed by the FTC and the SEC. Contempt of court. Ignoring court orders or sanctions can result in contempt of court, leading to additional fines or jail time. Adverse legal outcomes in civil cases, failure to comply with court orders can result in claims or defense being dismissed. How to find specific penalties, identify the law, determine the exact law that was allegedly violated, consult legal resources, look up relevant statutes or court rules, seeking legal advice, consult an attorney to understand the specific penalties and consequences for a particular violation. Okay. Penalties for violating the letter of the law. The letter of the law refers to following exact literal wording of a law, rule, or principle, rather than its intended purpose for underlying principle. The concept is also contrasted with the spirit of the law, which emphasizes the intent behind the law. Adhering to the letter of the law can involve exploiting loopholes or technicalities, sometimes to achieve a result that goes against the law's general meaning or intent. Sometimes. Letter of the law, a strict literal interpretation of explicit words of a statute or rule, spirit of the law, the underlying intention, moral principle, or overall goal of the law. Okay, so like I said, when anybody tries to explain the law to me, I always refer to the letter of the law. Sometimes I go as far as asking people, do you know the penalties for violating the letter of the law? And that usually ends the conversation there. Okay. But either way, this is just a couple of thoughts I had on my mind, a question somebody asked me, and I know it would evolve into more questions. They always do. And I'm not complaining. The only stupid questions are the ones you don't ask. It's always been a pleasure to inform you. Open your eyes and open your mind. All right, I didn't write this. I just read it to you, okay? And you can hold me to the letter of law, and that is I will you in any court of law. Thank you and good night. May your Creator always be with you and rain many blessings. A long life and good health. Long life and good health, my friends. Good night.